From Dhaka to DC and Delhi to Gaza. It's a packed Tuesday here at India Global with me, Arjun, Samar, Mahendran. But first, the headlines. India's big fact check against Trump's tariff fiction. New Delhi reiterates India not most protectionist economy, underlines Washington's high tariffs on dairy, agriculture and automobiles. After major joint sale in South China Sea, India and Philippines boost ties to strategic partnership, ink pivotal MOUs in multiple sectors. It's the biggest single purchase of BrahMos missiles. Indian Air Force and Navy to place mega orders for coveted BrahMos missiles. Dhaka stands at a crossroads 1 year after Sheikh Hasina's ouster. Meanwhile, student-led protests mark former PM Hasina's exit anniversary. And over 50 people missing and several villages swept away after major cloudburst triggers floods in Uttarakhand's Uttarkashi.
मामा चले गए सेफ जगह मामा चले
सेफ है मंदिर
And on to our top focus this Tuesday on India Global viewers. India has responded to Donald Trump's threat to increase tariffs in the country for purchasing Russian energy. Now, New Delhi has described such moves as unjustified and unreasonable. And it's asserting that it will take all necessary steps, in fact, to protect its national interests and economic security. Moreover, the response comes just hours after Trump's outburst on social media over India buying massive amounts of Russian oil and also selling it on the open market for quote-unquote big profit. That's what Trump claims. Now, Trump contended that he would be substantially raising tariffs on India since the matter is also linked to the killing of people in Ukraine by Russia. He did not specify the quantum of this levy, however. New Delhi has also, meanwhile, fact-checked Trump on multiple grounds. Now, just for instance, 45% of American imports face under 5% tariff in India, and New Delhi remains one of the most open and accessible markets for Washington, unlike what Trump has been claiming up until now. My colleague Vishal Vivek joins us for more on this. Vishal, BBC India has fact-checked Trump on his tariff jibes. What's the latest you're picking up?
So it's quite clear that India has clamped down hard on what Trump has been saying in the last 2 weeks or so, especially about the tariffs that India imposes on a lot of the products that go into the US. But India, on the other hand, has sort of given a reality check to Trump, listing out that even US was aware that India is importing a lot of these products from Russia, and it's not an aberration actually, because a lot of these allies of the US, such as the whole of EU bloc, imports a lot of stuff from Russia, energy from Russia, and US itself is a big importer of fertilizer from Russia. So that is what India has put out on the international stage for everyone to see that it's not an aberration. And to give you a perspective, sources have indicated that the mean tariff that India imposes is 4.6% lower than many countries. So that's one of the key points that India has raised. And zero or low duty on key US exports, low duties on US oil, coal, pharma, machinery. And India is one of the most open and accessible markets for US. So these are some of the points that the sources have listed out, showing that it's actually a very open economy, and a lot of economies in turn have benefited from it.
Well, thank you so much for putting things in perspective there, Vishal. Moving on, but staying with New Delhi, where India and Philippines, in fact, have upgraded their relationship to a strategic partnership, putting defense and maritime cooperation at the very forefront. Now, PM Modi and President Marcos Jr. held detailed talks in New Delhi covering weapon procurement, naval exercises and shared regional concessions in the South China Sea. The visit also marks the 75th anniversary of diplomatic ties between the two nations and comes on the sidelines of, in fact, the very first joint sail in the South China Sea by the two nations. Now, 6 new agreements are in fact in the pipeline, and New Delhi will boost its development projects in the Philippines while exploring deeper trade and digital coordination. Listen into PM Modi and President Marcos Jr.
आज मैंने और राष्ट्रपति जी ने आपसी सहयोग, क्षेत्रीय मुद्दों और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय परिस्थितियों पर विस्तार से बातचीत की। ये प्रसन्नता का विषय है कि आज हमने अपने संबंधों को स्ट्रैटेजिक पार्टनरशिप का दर्जा देने का निर्णय लिया है।
Thank you, Excellency, our friend and host, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji, for receiving us so graciously and hospitably on this state visit. It is my great pleasure to be in India. This sojourn makes me the 5th Philippine president to undertake a visit to this great country. I carry the message of our solidarity with India, both over the tragic attack in Pahalgam earlier this year and in the broader fight against terrorism. I come at a crucial juncture in our bilateral partnership. Today, our relationship enters a new epoch as Prime Minister Modi and I formally launched the strategic partnership between Philippines and India.
Meanwhile, my colleague Mohammad Ghazali joins us for more on this. Ghazali, there were drills in the South China Sea. Philippines is, really interested in defense procurement from India, be it BrahMos, be it the Philippine Navy. Ties have been upgraded to a strategic partnership. What's the defense, what's the geopolitical outline of this relationship between New Delhi and the Philippines?
First, Arjun, the timing of the joint naval exercise is very interesting. Just a day ahead of President's visit to India, the joint naval exercise between India and Philippines happened in the South China Sea region at the disputed location where China claims that its maritime territory is its own, and they have reacted to it very strongly, saying that perhaps all this hoopla about is what they said, that it's all hype about it and situation is under control. So China objecting to it is certainly is what India has always talked about. The freedom of navigation in maritime waters is something which was exemplified by the joint naval exercise. But besides that, today when the Prime Minister Modi and President of Philippines spoke about the Pahalgam terror attack, that showed one more time that all that controversy which was going around, that how many countries have supported India in Pahalgam terror attack, that was exemplified by his opening remarks during the joint press conference. But besides that, there have been multiple MOUs which have been signed between the two countries, but beyond the maritime security and other trade ties which have been spoken about, there are 5 key announcements between India and Philippines. One being that India will be extending support on a pilot project for setting up Philippines' sovereign data cloud infrastructure. Then it has been an invitation has been extended to Philippines to participate in the Information Fusion Center with the Indian Ocean region. So that's one of the key MOUs between the two countries. Besides that, the focus was also on to promote tourism. So Philippines will grant a visa-free entry to Indian tourists. India has also extended the same kind of facility for the Filipinian tourists to India for 1 year. And many other sectors have been explored between the two countries to deepen our ties with Philippines.
Well, thank you so much for unpacking those important developments for our viewers, Ghazali. Moving on and shifting our focus eastwards to Bangladesh, where a year on from the ouster of Sheikh Hasina and the bloody protests, in fact, preceding it, Dhaka is still reeling from that violence. Sheikh Hasina now faces trial for crimes against humanity as she is believed to be in India. But despite this bloodshed and lives lost, Bangladesh has continued to suffer as extremists and Islamic radicals are now emboldened more than ever. The prospect of a better Bangladesh with a liberal democracy, political tolerance and religious and communal harmony has remained a challenge and a distant dream, so to say. And with no elected government in place yet, its future for the moment seems gloomy, to say the least. Meanwhile, this report brings you all the details you need to know.
A A year since the Sheikh Hasina government was toppled and Sheikh Hasina left Bangladesh, the country still has no elected government and is being governed by an unelected interim government led by Muhammad Yunus. Under pressure, Yunus finally announced elections that are likely to be held in February 2026, and political parties are preparing for it. Sheikh Hasina's Awami League has been banned from contesting the next election. Hasina says Yunus has given the reins of the government to terrorists against whom her government fought.
এখন বাংলাদেশ সেই জঙ্গিদের রাজত্ব, সেই জঙ্গিদের উপর নির্ভর করেই তাদেরকে ব্যবহার করে এবং আমাকে আর রেহানাকে হত্যার চক্রান্ত করেই ইউনূস কিন্তু ক্ষমতা দখল করলো। আর ক্ষমতা এসে আওয়ামী লীগের যত নেতাকর্মী এবং সহযোগী সংগঠনের নেতাকর্মী, মুক্তিযোদ্ধা, 14 দলীয় নেতা, তাদেরকে গ্রেপ্তার। আর মামলার তো কোনো সীমা পরিসীমা নাই। লক্ষ লক্ষ মামলা হয়ে গেছে আমাদের বিরুদ্ধে, আমার নিজের বিরুদ্ধে তো প্রায় 450-র মতো মামলা।
The BNP, the main opposition party during Hasina regime, which boycotted the January 2024 election saying it was rigged, now sees an opportunity to come back to power. The National Citizens Party, which was born out of the uprising last year, looks all set to challenge the status quo. However, many see it as a front for the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh. Sarjis Alam, a face for the protest last year, says the current situation is the result of policies since the last 50 years and it cannot be addressed in a year.
আমাদের ওই যে আকাঙ্ক্ষা সেগুলো বাস্তবায়ন হওয়ার জন্য আমাদের যে ফাইট, তার বিরুদ্ধে পুরাতন এস্টাবলিশমেন্টের যারা, তারাও খুব শক্তিশালী একটা ফাইট করছে যেন আমাদের কাঙ্ক্ষিত বাংলাদেশটা না হয়। এখানে কোনো একটা পক্ষকে আসলে দায় দেওয়ার সুযোগ নেই।
But what is most worrying is the ban on the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, a hardline radical Islamic force, has been lifted and its registration with the Election Commission has been restored. And the Jamaat has been accused of targeting Bangladesh's minority population, especially Hindus. As Bangladesh unveils its July declaration, all eyes are on which path the country chooses for its future. Will it adopt an anti-India, pro-Pakistan position? Will it forget the atrocities of the Pakistani army and the struggles of 1971? Or will it course correct and rebuild ties with India? NDTV Bureau Report.
And well, it's time we slip into a very short break. But on the other side, we decode why Indian forces are placing mega orders for the Indo-Russian joint venture BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're watching the Tuesday edition of India Global Now. Shifting our focus to New Delhi, where soon after they caused significant damage to Pakistani military infrastructure during Operation Sindoor, Indian forces are placing mega orders for the Indo-Russian joint venture BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles. Now, top defense sources told ANI that a high-level defense ministry meeting is expected to give clearance for the procurement of a large number of BrahMos missiles for the Indian Navy warships, along with ground and air-launched versions of these weapons for the Indian Air Force as well very soon. Now, the missiles were used in a big way to hit Pakistani air bases, army cantonments all along its length and breadth during the 4-day conflict between New Delhi and Islamabad. The Indian Navy, meanwhile, would be using the missiles for equipping its Veer-class warships, while the Indian Air Force would be using them to equip its Russian-origin Sukhoi 30 MKI fighter jet fleet, the sources have said. Meanwhile, my colleague Vishal Vivek joins us for more on this. Vishal, it's another big push or a major push to the Make in India and Make for India campaign. We know it's a very versatile missile platform, but what really sets the BrahMos apart, Vishal?
Well, it's definitely a shot in the arm of that India-Russia partnership that the world seems to be talking about at the moment, because BrahMos is it's a co-project. It's a project developed by both India and Russia. The manufacturing is done in India. So BrahMos, the full form of which is Brahmaputra and Moscow, because it was, as I mentioned, a combination of both India's and Russia's efforts. So it's a historic day because it's the biggest order for BrahMos missiles ever. And BrahMos, as you mentioned, was used in Operation Sindoor. It was one of the reasons why India was able to circumvent, India was able to go past a lot of these barricades that Pakistan had, erected militarily. And the air-launched missiles for AF's Tamil Nadu branch will be provided through this contract. This is yet to be finalized. The Defense Department is yet to ratify fully on this, but sources have indicated that will most likely go through. So this will be in two parts. There will be ship-launched missiles and also air-launched missiles. So IAF and Indian Navy both will benefit through this big-time contract.
Well, that's a major shot in the arm indeed, as my colleague Vishal there underlined. Now, shifting focus but staying with the Indian Army that has today taken a dig at the United States by sharing an old newspaper clip from 1971, or should I say all the way back from 1971. Now, what does it show? It shows how the country has supported Pakistan for decades together. Now, the post comes only a day after President Donald Trump threatened India over its purchase of Russian oil, saying he will substantially raise tariffs on goods from India. Now, the clip shared by the Eastern Command of the Indian Army dates back to the 5th of August 1971. Viewers, it shows how the US was supplying arms to Pakistan for decades in the build-up for the 1971 war. They state that year build-up of the war, August 5, 1971. The Army captioned the post. We shift our focus to the Middle East, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly pushing for a full occupation of the Gaza Strip in a massive expansion of the country's military operations in the besieged enclave. Now, his move, according to Israeli media, comes as ceasefire talks with Hamas stall and Israel pushes for a comprehensive plan to end the conflict, as it terms it, rather than a piecemeal truce. Now, the country is facing intense international criticism, domestic discontent, and also internal political rifts. In the latest, the government voted Monday to dismiss the Attorney General, a prominent Netanyahu critic who is prosecuting his ongoing corruption case. Listen into Netanyahu's latest reaction, followed by a ground report by my colleague Vishnu Shom.
אנחנו צריכים להמשיך לעמוד יחד ולהילחם יחד כדי להשיג את מטרות המלחמה שהצבנו, את כולן. את הכרעת האויב, שחרור חטופינו, והבטחה שעזה לא תהווה יותר איום על ישראל. בהמשך השבוע אני אכנס לקבינט כדי להנחות את צה"ל כיצד להשיג את שלוש המטרות הללו, כולן בלי יוצא מן הכלל.
I'm in Tel Aviv, Israel, and coming to you live today just hours after news started breaking across Israeli networks of a plan by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, to completely occupy the Gaza Strip. This would mark a huge escalation in the war over here in West Asia, and comes at a time when it is believed that peace talks between Hamas in Gaza and interlocutors led by the United States, Egypt, Qatar, they have essentially broken down. And therefore, any peace formula which was being spoken about, any hostage exchange, hostage for prisoner exchange, which was being spoken about at this stage, appears to be caught in this intractable vortex, which is essentially what the situation over here is. Suggestions that Israel may now forcibly occupy all of the Gaza Strip comes at a time when there are reports from Gaza which point to the starvation, including of children, a humanitarian crisis, the lack of availability of food and basic products. Now, we've been speaking to Israeli officials over the last couple of days, and they point out that these are exaggerated reports and that there is a deliberate effort by Hamas to create confusion on the ground, and that there is no policy whatsoever of Israel wanting to starve people in Hamas. But the contrarian position and the reports from Gaza are starkly different. But Israel's priority here, and we see this in so many signboards all across Tel Aviv, bring them home, is to get its hostages back one way or the other. And it does appear that Benjamin Netanyahu may be setting the stage for another expansion of the conflict in Gaza with a full-fledged occupation of Gaza itself. How will the US react? Will Israel necessarily care one way or the other? No clear answers now, but the situation remains as intense as ever. In Tel Aviv, Israel, with Xavier Thomas, Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
Now we shift our focus westwards, viewers, where the United States is in fact making it harder for foreign spouses to get a green card, formerly called legal permanent residency. To crack down on marriage fraud, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, or the USCIS as they are called, has beefed up security and scrutiny of family-based immigrant visa petitions. So if you're planning to apply for a green card through marriage, better buckle up. Here's what you must know before filing that very important application that you've been holding on to for a while. Now, there will be stricter documentation scrutinies. Couples must now provide extensive proof of their relationship. Think joint bank statements, shared leases, and even real-time photos. Personal affidavits from friends and families are also a must now to verify the legitimacy of your marriage. Meanwhile, immigration officers are digging deeper with face-to-face interviews that leave no stone unturned. Expect sharp questions even about past visa attempts and how you first met. Now, a previous green card denial or visa rejection could very well now put your entire application under a magnifying glass. Officials are in fact treating past immigration red flags as warning signs and potential grounds for even rejection. Every entry, exit, and visa status change is being closely examined, ever closely, more than ever. Even from years ago, if there's any inconsistency, expect delays, questioning, or even worse, denial altogether. And well, the fact of the matter is, love may be real, viewers, but now your paperwork has to prove that. Now, we shift our focus. The US could very well require bonds of up to $15,000 for some tourist and business visas under a pilot program launching in just 2 weeks, in an effort that in fact aims to crack down on visitors who overstay their visas. Now, this program gives US consular officers the discretion to impose bonds on visitors from countries with high tariff rates of visa overstays. Now, bonds could also be applied to people coming from countries where screening and vetting information is deemed insufficient. In a seismic shift for workplace culture, Google CEO Sundar Pichai has directed employees to prioritize artificial intelligence over human colleagues, backed by an unprecedented $85 billion corporate investment in AI development. Now, this comes as tech leaders such as Google, Apple, and Microsoft are placing AI at the center stage, which is resulting in many traditional roles that were performed by humans to be in fact replaced by artificial intelligence. India's biggest airline is stepping into its 20th year with unmistakable global intent. That's correct. Indigo has announced the launch of daily direct flights to London's Heathrow starting the 26th of October. It's a major step forward in its long-haul ambitions. This marks Indigo's entry into one of the most premium and competitive global routes, long dominated by full-service carriers. The airline, in fact, also recently launched long-haul services to Amsterdam and Manchester. And well, that's all we have for you this Tuesday on India Global. Take care and have a wonderful day.